11 games to predict in Premier League predictions week 32. So I guess without further ado, let's predict all the games. Starting off at the Etihad Stadium, it is Manchester City versus Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace are on fire. I'm pretty sure they've got the second best form out of the last 10 games out of any team. That is brilliant. They won the last game 2-1 against Brighton, and now they're facing a Man City side which is no longer a juggernaut team this season, are they? They've massively fallen off a cliff, which kind of makes me feel like Crystal Palace, the way everything's going, I feel like they might be able to win, especially after a very stinky Manchester derby. You have to admit it was a bit boring in that 0-0 result. But Manchester City, despite the last game being terrible in the Manchester derby, they still have a good side. And if you think about it, yes, they are no longer the juggernauts of the Premier League, but they are still in a respectable 6th position in the Premier League. And they're still fighting for Champions League. And out of all 20 teams in the Premier League, they are still one of the best, even without Erling Haaland. So Crystal Palace are going to find it very tough, especially that they don't have Mark Gay after he is suspended coming into this game. So that does give a chance for Man City to maybe get something. I cannot split the sides. A good team, which is currently in 6th position, a Crystal Palace side with the second best form in the entire Premier League, but are still in mid-table. So I find it quite hard to separate them. I'm going for a 1-1 score between Manchester City and Crystal Palace. It is genuinely going to be interesting. It's going to be a seriously tight game as well. Moving to the EFL Championship, it is at the St Mary's. It is Southampton versus Aston Villa. And yes, Southampton are now officially a EFL Championship side going into next season. But for now, they are currently a Premier League side, and they have to face Aston Villa, which are cooking. They are cooking in a good way, Aston Villa. They have won 7 games in a row in all competitions. Yes, they have to play loads of games, and they have been playing loads of games, and they have to be playing PSG today in just 2 or 3 hours, because today is Wednesday. That's when I'm recording this video. So they are going to be a bit tired, but even if they are going to be tired, even if a couple more injuries happen between now and the Southampton game for Aston Villa, I still feel like they're going to batter Southampton. I do feel like Southampton will nick a goal, considering they did against Tottenham, they did against Crystal Palace, and there are a few attacks here and there in each game that Southampton have, which do look pretty good. So I could see them nicking a goal, but Aston Villa, they've got so many options in the attack now with Marcus Rashford, Milan, Asensio, Morgan Rogers. They've got loads of players, Ollie Watkins, which can score goals. And that's why I'm going to have to go 4-1 away from home towards Aston Villa. Sorry, Southampton, but your season's over. But Aston Villa is still going. Moving to the City ground, it's Nottingham Forest versus Everton. Now, just looking at these two teams and how they play and how their season's gone by, it's going to be a very tight, close and low-scoring encounter. Yes, I know these two teams are on other ends of the table, Nottingham Forest in 3rd and Everton in 15th, but thinking about it, both these sides have incredibly good defences. Look at Nottingham Forest. Murillo and Milenkovic has to be the best defensive partnership in the Premier League this season. And Everton, well, they are always known for a great defence with Tawaski, Jarrad Branthwaite, then a really good goalkeeper in Jordan Pickford. And for a time this season, in like the midpoint of this season, they went through loads of games of having 0-0 results. And considering Nottingham Forest this season hasn't really been scoring much, and same goes to Everton, they haven't been scoring much, and the fact that both these sides have really good defences, it's going to be 0-0 between the two sides. Surely you look at this game and it has to be 0-0. Look at it. Everton have drew 4 out of the last 5 games in the Premier League. They've gotten the most draws in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest did just lose against Aston Villa, so drawing to Everton is definitely possible. I really can't see anything but a 0-0 in this game. Moving over to the Amex Stadium, It is Brighton and Hove Albion versus Leicester City. And that first goal that Newcastle United scored against Leicester, that looked like a training ground kind of goal. Really simple, really easy, like there was no defenders. Pass, 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 move, 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 overlap, goal. Easy tap-in, and Leicester overall did not look good at all in that game. Deserved to lose 3-0. There were moments like hitting the post, then post again from the same shot, but then it being offside. That was close, and there were some other moments which Nick Pope saved as well. But overall, deserved to lose. Haven't scored for like 12 or so hours, which is like 8 or so games. It is shambolic. Leicester City, they're not going to score again. Brighton, yes, they are not looking good. They have lost their last 3 games in all competitions, but they're facing a much easier side in Leicester. And I see nothing but a Brighton win. Brighton 2-0 win against Leicester City. It's done for Leicester. Surely they are going down soon. Over to the Emirates Stadium, it's the Gunners versus Brentford in a bit of a London derby. And the Gunners have just won yesterday night 3-0 against Real Madrid. My gosh, what a win that is. What 2 great free kicks Declan Rice scored. Possibly the best free kick scored in the entire Premier League and Champions League season. And Declan Rice is buzzing. Arsenal are buzzing. And there is no way Arsenal are not going through to the semi-finals of the Champions League. That is it. Even if they lose against Real Madrid, I don't see them bottling this 3-0 lead that they currently have. And Arsenal, surely, with all the positivity of Thomas Partey stopping every single attack pretty much from Real Madrid, the positivity of Bukayo Saka being back, him performing well in another game, Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice being fantastic, Arsenal playing amazing, beating Real Madrid. They may not win the Premier League, but the Champions League, why not? Surely the positivity is going to rub off in these Premier League games as they face Brentford 100%, 2-1 to Arsenal. The positivity from that Real Madrid game, the stuff I seen from that Real Madrid game was brilliant. Honestly, loads of great footballers. Brentford, yes, they've got a great combination of Brian Mbeumo and Yohan Wissa, but if you think about it, they've only got 5 points in the last 5 games. They're starting to fall down the league table. They're going to finish in mid-table. While Arsenal, they are cooking on gas. Over to Stamford Bridge, it is Chelsea versus Ipswich Town. And I am actually tempted to go for a draw or maybe even a win to Ipswich after it was another boring 0-0 draw for Chelsea against Brentford. There were 2 0-0 draws in the last game. The Manchester derby and that London derby. But as soon as Nicholas Jackson and Cole Palmer came on, there was a bit of an energetic spark in the attack. And you know what? Facing one of the lower sides, Ipswich Town, with Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson, surely they're going to be winning it. I mean, Ipswich Town's defence against Wolverhampton Wanderers was a bit all over the place. The shape was a bit zigzaggy. The defensive awareness cost them. The defensive experience in the Premier League cost them. And they probably are going down now. There's a 12-point gap. Chelsea surely has this one in the bag. And I feel like Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson, this is going to be a perfect time to get back on goal-scoring form, especially for Cole Palmer. I'm going 3-1 to Chelsea. Tempting to go for a draw in my opinion, after Chelsea have not looked good in recent time. They've looked okay, but not amazing. But when you're facing Ipswich with defending like that, 3-1 to Chelsea. Cole Palmer to surely get a goal in this game. Over to the Molineux Stadium, it is Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Tottenham Hotspur. Now these two teams obviously is only separated by 5 points. Tottenham in 14th, Wolverhampton Wanderers in 17th. And it looks like Wolves, the way their form is going, the way the team is playing even without Matheus Cunha, is going to start to go above West Ham and Everton if they keep it up. I know Vitor Pereira says they're not quite safe yet, which is statistically true, but surely they are. Even if they lose all the remaining games, I still feel like they would win out in goal difference against Ipswich Town. But it's always good to say to the players, don't stop giving it your all now just because you think you're safe, because that could cost you, and it's a bad mentality to have. So I'm happy Vitor Pereira has said that. I'm happy he's talking to his squad well. I'm happy he's doing well, because that Wolves side is really talented, even without Matheus Cunha. Imagine what Wolverhampton Wanderers could do when Matheus Cunha's back in that side. My gosh, they're going to be cooking. And that's why I am not going to go for them to lose. Because Tottenham, yes, did win against Southampton, but all season they have not been doing well. Especially to the heights of goodness where Tottenham should be, because they should be much higher up on how big Tottenham are. And the only reason Ange Postecoglou still has his job is probably because of the Europa League. So honestly, Tottenham still has loads of great talent, has a lot of players fit, and still look decent now and again, but going against Wolves, I can't see them winning, especially having a bit of a mess season. So I'm going to have to go down the middle, and I'm going for a Desmond Tutu between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Tottenham Hotspur. Over to Anfield, it's Liverpool versus West Ham United. And Liverpool have finally lost again in the Premier League. Their second time ever against Fulham, losing it 3-2. Andrew Robinson being one of the main reasons why they lost it. A poor pass, then straight after a poor header, then straight after a big deflection for the goal to go in. So 3 mistakes in one simple attack by Fulham that Andrew Robinson gifted to Fulham. But he's still a good player, and it was just a string of bad mistakes in a quick succession, and I don't see it happening again in this game. And you know what? West Ham United, I have to give credit to them, because they got a good point against AFC Bournemouth. Ever since Füllkrug came on, my gosh, not just a great header to get a goal for West Ham, but he gave West Ham's attack loads of energy going forward and gave that spark. If Füllkrug can play in this game, West Ham are going to get a goal. It's going to be quite close, especially that Liverpool just lost to Fulham. They're starting to lose more in the Carabao Cup, in the Champions League, getting knocked out of those 2 competitions. And the way it's going, Liverpool's starting to fall down in form in the latest stages of the season. So West Ham are going to make this seriously close, but you have to admit, Liverpool are still good, and West Ham still don't look the best. 2-1 to Liverpool, as Liverpool still are the better side on paper. Moving over to St James's Park, it's Newcastle United versus Manchester United. And in recent time, the last few seasons, it feels like Newcastle constantly wins against Manchester United. Let's just not talk about that Carabao Cup final against Man United, but overall, Newcastle have won multiple times. Speaking about Carabao Cups, Newcastle got their revenge on the Carabao Cup and actually won the Carabao Cup, and won against Brentford, and won against Leicester City. It was pretty much a walk in the park against Leicester. Newcastle, loads of positivity of winning the Carabao Cup. I feel like I'm probably going to win this game. I could see a draw, but overall, at St James's Park, the way Newcastle are playing, surely they got this one in the bag. I'm going 1-0 to Newcastle United. But I have to give credit to Man United. Bruno Fernandes is looking really good. And Man United, they're getting a player like Garnacho starting to actually run in behind the defence. And Ruben Amorim is starting to change Man United for the better. And they are improving. But they're still not amazing. And they've still got a long way to go. But it's going to be a close game because of Man United's improvements. But honestly, they're struggling to score, so I don't see them scoring against Big Dan Burn. To the Vitality Stadium, it's AFC Bournemouth versus the Cottagers. And looking at this game, Fulham are doing brilliantly. They've just taken down current league leaders Liverpool 3-2. Ryan Sessegnon is back in the Fulham side and is starting to get his attacking spirit back with a goal in the last game. And Fulham, what a win. And I actually think Bournemouth are due a win. If you think about it, they played pretty well against West Ham. And if it wasn't for Füllkrug bringing energy in West Ham's attack, they probably would have won that game. And because they drew a win, because they've got home advantage, which is still sort of a thing, and because Fulham, if we look at the last 5 games, they've won, then lost, then won, then lost, then won. Which probably means in the pattern of Fulham games, they're going to lose. Trust me, it's going to be a close game, but Fulham, they win and lose and draw against all teams. For example, they drew against Southampton earlier on in the season, but won against Liverpool. Against any team, they make it a close game, whether it's bad for them or good for them. It's just how it happens. So Bournemouth, they're due a win. They still look decent. And if you look at it, the amount of attacking options they have, Altara, Evanilson's now on form. Kirkes to whip the ball in the box. Tavernier, Semenyo, they've got loads of attacking talent, which can easily get some goals. 2-1 to Bournemouth. I've said why, and I'm actually really confident for some reason in this game that Bournemouth is going to win. I just feel like they're due a win. Moving back 3 weeks to game week 29, this game didn't play because Newcastle played in the final in the Carabao Cup against Liverpool. And it's at St James's Park. It's Newcastle United versus Crystal Palace. This is played 2 days after the Monday fixture of Bournemouth versus Fulham. And you know what? I don't see Newcastle losing this. Despite Crystal Palace having the second best form in the last 10 games in the entire Premier League, Newcastle are doing brilliantly ever since they won the Carabao Cup. And after winning that 1-0 win against West Ham, they're doing brilliantly. And you know what? Crystal Palace still drew to Southampton. So that probably means Newcastle can easily draw, especially at St James's Park, especially after all the wins. But I have to give credit to Crystal Palace. I do like them, and they are looking really good at the moment. So I don't feel like Newcastle are going to win. 1-1 between Newcastle and Crystal Palace. Honestly, it's going to be a really entertaining game between these two sides, because both of these sides are on incredible form. So I feel like that's going to cancel each other out, and it's going to be 1-1. But on to my goal of game week 31. And there were so many goals to actually give for goal of the week, but I'm giving it to McAllister. I mean, that was an absolute rocket of a goal. Even though they lost, it was a hell of a goal. But how did I do in week 31? Well, I only got 4 points. I still got one exact result correct. That was the Newcastle-Leicester game. It was pretty easy to predict though, but that's pretty poor. After getting a 9-pointer and a 7-pointer, a 4-pointer feels a bit meh. But that does put me on 163 points out of 618 points, which is not the best. Kind of terrible, but something that isn't terrible is this next video that I'm gonna punch you to. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day, and you keep having wonderful days forever. But for now, check out this next video, and toodle pip.